Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. Today we have another story from Legends of the Rhine by Wilhelm Reuland. And this story may seem to be about succession and emperors and all of these other very high-minded things, but at the end of it, really, this is a story of wine and how one is far superior. This is the Emperor Wenzel. In the middle of a beautiful meadow at Rhine near Koblenz stands the famous historical King's Chair. Here, where the lands of the three great prelates of Cologne, Mainz, and Treves joined together, the princely seven met to choose the new ruler who was to direct the destiny of the Holy Roman Empire. Here, Charles IV was chosen by the free will of the electors. Here also the 7 elected Wenceslas of the House of Luxembourg, Charles's son, emperor. During his lifetime, Charles has exerted himself very much over the election of his firstborn son, and he even made a pilgrimage with him to Rheims on the Rhine, where, at the renowned Königstuhl, the Chancellor of the Kingdom, Archbishop of Mainz, often held important conferences with their Grace of Treves and Cologne and the Count Palatine. This Wenceslas of Bohemia had a great predilection for the Rhine and its wines, and later on, when, less by his own merits than by the exertions of his father and the favor of the electors, he became German emperor, his brother inheriting the sandy country of Brandenburg, he had even then paid more honors to the Rhine wine than any of its lovers. It afforded him a greater pleasure than the enjoyment of wearing a crown. Finding that a good drink tasted better at the place of its origin, he often visited the brave Count Palatine of the Rhine, who dwelt in this blissful country, and who had more casks in his cellar than there are saints' days in a year. This proof of imperial confidence was by no means disagreeable to the very noble Elector Ruprecht of the Palatinate, and he neglected no opportunity of striving to ingratiate himself more and more in the emperor's favor. Gallant Ruprecht would not unwillingly have exchanged his little Palatinate crown for an imperial one. Sometimes, when his royal guest, becoming very jovial from the wine he had taken, confessed that the high dignity of emperor was becoming troublesome to him, the count would agree with him frankly, and never failed to let his imperial master know that the electors were discontented at his careless administration, and would be well pleased if he retired. Emperor Wenzel listened to all he said with perfect indifference, continuing in the meantime to revel in his wine. One day the emperor was sitting with his gay companions at the Königstuhl in Rheims. They were all very merry, as the cup of Assmanshauser wine had already been passed round many times. This delicious vintage was very pleasing to Wenzel, and the other drinkers could not find words enough to praise it. While goblets were being handed round and the sounds of joviality filled the royal hall, the emperor stood up suddenly, and addressing himself to the count, said in a very light-hearted tone, "I think the crown which was set on my head would not be very unsuitable to you. Well, I offer it to you, if you are able to place before me and my companions here a wine which tastes better than this Assmanshauser." There was a cunning twinkle in the count's eyes as he beckoned to his page. After a while, a servant rolled in a great cask, from which the cups were at once filled. The count stood up and presented the first goblet to the emperor. "That is my Bacharacher wine, noble lords. Taste it. I can wait for your judgment without fear." They all drank, and every face beamed with pleasure. The opinions were undivided in favor of the fiery Bacharacher. The emperor rose and loudly declared he preferred it to the Assmanshauser. He could not praise it too highly, nor drink enough of it. "This wine is worth more than 1,000 crowns," he said enthusiastically. Wenzel kept his word and ceded his crown to Ruprecht of the Palatinate, who in his turn made the emperor a present of 6 wagon loads of Bacharacher wine. And that is the story of the Emperor Wenzel. Again, it's not so much a story of an emperor, but the superiority of the Assmanshauser wine. This is Dan Scholz for the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you'd like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you enjoyed the story, please head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave a rating or a review. Or head over to folktaleproject.com/support if you'd like to buy the podcast a coffee or become a Patreon patron. Next week, we'll be back with 3 new stories from Legends of the Rhine. As always, thank you so much for listening.